Everyone expected my sister to fall apart. That was the unspoken agreement inside St. Mary's Catholic Church that afternoon. The pews were packed, the air thick with incense and curiosity, and every whisper carried the same prediction: the young widow will break. People leaned forward, waiting for sobs, for collapse, for the kind of grief that makes spectators feel righteous for watching. But Jennifer didn't cry. She didn't scream either. Not at first. She arrived late, as if timing no longer mattered to her. The heavy wooden doors creaked open, and heads turned all at once. My sister walked in wearing plain black clothes that hung on her like they belonged to someone else. She was painfully thin. Her hair was loose, uncombed, falling over her shoulders. Her face looked carved out of stone, no shine in her eyes, no softness left. I was sitting near the back, gripping my purse so tightly my fingers hurt. My heart was beating too fast, like it already knew something terrible was about to happen. I had felt it since morning. That pressure in the chest that doesn't come from fear, but from truth trying to surface. Jennifer walked down the center aisle slowly. Each step echoed. People shifted to make space, as if instinctively moving away from danger. She didn't look at anyone, not our parents, not Arthur's family, not the priest. Her eyes were locked on the open casket at the front of the church. Arthur Montgomery lay inside it, dressed impeccably in a black suit, hands folded, face peaceful. He looked like a man who had lived a good life. Like a man who deserved respect. The church went completely silent. The priest stopped mid-prayer. Someone dropped a rosary. Everyone waited for the widow's farewell, maybe a kiss on the forehead, maybe a sobbing collapse onto the floor. Instead, Jennifer stood there for several long seconds, staring at the face of the man she had been married to for 5 years. Then she leaned forward. At first, I thought she was going to whisper something to him. A final goodbye. A prayer. Forgiveness. But she didn't whisper. She spat. She gathered saliva in her mouth and spit directly onto his face. The sound was soft, almost nothing, but the effect was explosive. A collective gasp tore through the church. Someone screamed. Another person stood up so fast their pew slammed shut. Arthur's family shouted in outrage, and then Jennifer screamed, "He'd die again, you bastard." Her voice wasn't hysterical. It was sharp. Controlled. The sound of someone finally breathing after years underwater. People rushed forward. The priest tried to intervene. Arthur's nephew lunged toward her, shouting that she was insane. My mother cried out. My father tried to stand, but his legs failed him. He collapsed back onto the pew like a man suddenly made of paper. Jennifer didn't stop. She pointed at the body in the casket and began to speak. No, to unleash words that had been locked inside her for half a decade. Accusations. Names. Truths so heavy they seemed to bend the air. I don't remember every sentence she said. I remember the feeling, the ground shifting, the walls closing in, the certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. Because I knew what she was saying was true, and that knowledge was my shame. My name is Barbara. I am Jennifer's older sister. And for years, I had watched something evil grow right in front of me, and chosen silence. People like to believe monsters announce themselves, that they arrive with warnings and obvious signs. But Arthur Montgomery didn't. He arrived as a savior point 5 years earlier, on a bitter winter afternoon. He knocked on my parents' door wearing a polite smile and carrying an envelope of money. He said he wanted to help. Said he respected our family. Said he expected nothing in return. My father was drowning in debt. My mother was praying for a miracle, and we welcomed the devil inside, thinking he was an angel. Jennifer was only 14 then. A child with scraped knees and a ponytail. She helped my mother in the kitchen, played with stray cats, laughed too loudly. Innocence clung to her like sunlight. I was older. Married. Supposedly wiser, and yet, When I saw the way Arthur's eyes followed my sister, just for a second too long, I said nothing. When I heard her scream one afternoon and saw the mark on her arm, I accepted the excuse. When she grew quieter, thinner, afraid, I told myself I was imagining things. Silence is easier than confrontation. Comfort is easier than courage. By the time Jennifer disappeared for 3 days and came back broken, pregnant, and hollow-eyed, the trap had already closed. And when my father announced that she would marry Arthur to solve the problem, I knew exactly what it was. A transaction, a sale, a child exchanged for money and reputation. I didn't stop it. I didn't save her. And 5 years later, I sat in that church watching the truth erupt like a long-buried bomb, knowing I had helped bury it in the first place. Jennifer's scream echoed through St. Mary's that day, but it wasn't just rage. It was survival, and it was only the beginning. Rehook, because what my sister revealed next wouldn't just destroy a respected man's legacy, it would expose a pattern of horror buried across decades, and force me to confront the one truth I had avoided my entire life. The church never fully recovered from what happened that afternoon. Within minutes of Jennifer's outburst, St. Mary's transformed from a place of worship into a battleground of whispers, accusations, and disbelief. Arthur's family surrounded the casket, shielding his body as if it could still be harmed. The priest kept repeating, "This is not the time," but time had already run out. Jennifer was escorted outside, her arms held by 2 men she didn't resist. She looked empty now, like everything she had carried for years had finally been released. As they led her away, her eyes met mine for a brief second. There was no anger in them, only exhaustion. That look shattered me more than her scream ever could. I stayed seated long after the church emptied, staring at the altar, replaying the past 5 years like a punishment I could no longer avoid. Because Jennifer hadn't told the whole story yet. Not the beginning. Not the deal that changed everything. It started on a January evening, when the snow outside our house turned the world white and silent. Jennifer was 14. I was 22, newly married, already learning how quickly adulthood can harden a person. That night, my father called a family meeting. He didn't use words like crisis or emergency. He didn't need to. The envelope on the table said everything. Arthur Montgomery sat beside him, calm and composed, as if he were there to discuss a business merger instead of a child's future. Jennifer stood near the doorway, hugging herself. She already knew. Arthur spoke gently. Too gently. He said mistakes happened. He said he was willing to take responsibility. He said marrying Jennifer would protect her reputation, protect the family, protect everyone involved. I watched my sister's face drain of color as each sentence landed. She tried to speak, but my mother placed a hand on her arm, lightly, firmly. A warning disguised as comfort. And no one asked Jennifer what she wanted. Instead, they looked at me, Barbara, and my father said, "You understand how the world works." And I did. That was the problem. I understood debt. I understood shame. I understood how quickly a family can fall apart when the truth gets out. I understood that Arthur's money could make all of it disappear. And in that understanding, I failed my sister. The wedding was small and rushed. Jennifer wore a borrowed dress. Her hands trembled the entire time. When Arthur placed the ring on her finger, I noticed how tightly he squeezed, as if claiming ownership. After the ceremony, Jennifer whispered to me, "Please don't leave me." I told her everything would be fine. It was the cruelest lie I've ever told. Life with Arthur was a quiet prison. He kept her isolated, controlled her movements, decided when she could speak and when she couldn't. He was careful in public, charming even. In private, he was something else entirely. Jennifer stopped laughing, stopped singing, stopped dreaming. She became pregnant within months. When she told Arthur, he smiled in a way that made my stomach twist. He called it proof. Proof that everything had worked out. But pregnancy didn't soften him. It trapped her further. I visited when I could, but Arthur always watched. Every conversation felt monitored. Jennifer never said much, but her eyes spoke constantly. Bruises hidden under long sleeves. Flinches at sudden noises. Silence where there should have been joy. I wanted to help. I told myself that often. I just never acted on it. Fear is a powerful excuse. The baby was born early, a small boy with dark hair and wide eyes. Jennifer named him Daniel. Holding him was the first time I saw something alive in her again. Arthur barely looked at the child. When Daniel was 6 months old, Jennifer called me in the middle of the night. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She said Arthur had been drinking. She said she was scared. She begged me to come get her. I hesitated. I asked if it could wait until morning. By the time I arrived the next day, Arthur had already smoothed everything over. Jennifer sat silently at the kitchen table, her face bruised, her voice gone. Arthur smiled and thanked me for checking in. That night, I didn't sleep, because deep down, I knew something worse was coming. And when Arthur died suddenly, 5 years later, under circumstances no one questioned, I thought the nightmare had ended. I was wrong, because his death didn't free Jennifer. It unlocked her. Rehook at the police station that night, as my sister finally began to speak without fear, I realized the truth wasn't just about Arthur. It was about how many of us had helped him get away with everything. When Jennifer walked into the police station after the funeral, she didn't look like a grieving widow. She looked like someone turning herself in, not for a crime, but for survival. The officers were unprepared for her. They expected hysteria, denial, confusion. What they got instead was clarity. Jennifer sat down, folded her hands on the metal table, and said, I need to give a statement. Not about my husband's death. About my marriage. I sat beside her, silent, my chest tight with a dread I couldn't name. Every instinct in me wanted to interrupt, to soften the words before they hardened into official record. But for the first time in years, I understood something painful and simple. This wasn't my story to control. Jennifer began at the beginning, not with the wedding, not with the pregnancy, but with the first night she truly understood she belonged to Arthur. She described it calmly, almost clinically, the way people do when emotion would drown them if they let it surface. He took her phone. He locked doors. He decided what she wore. He decided when she slept. Every rule came wrapped in concern. I'm protecting you. People will judge. You're too fragile. Isolation became routine. Friends stopped visiting. Family visits required notice and permission. I remembered how often I had called and been told Jennifer was resting, or not feeling well, or busy. I believed those lies because they were convenient. Arthur was careful not to leave marks that couldn't be explained. When he did, he explained them for her. Falls. Accidents. Clumsiness. He spoke over her so often that eventually she stopped trying to speak at all. The officers listened. One of them stopped taking notes and just stared. Then Jennifer spoke about Daniel, about how Arthur treated the baby like a symbol rather than a child. Proof of legitimacy. A reason to be praised. He held Daniel in public and ignored him in private. He used the child to control her, threatening custody, threatening to take him away if she disobeyed. I felt sick because I had seen Arthur with Daniel. I had smiled. I had told myself he was just awkward with babies. Jennifer explained how fear changes the way time works. Days blur together. Weeks disappear. You measure life in moods, not dates. You become excellent at predicting danger. You learn to speak without words. Then she told them about the night everything shifted. Arthur had come home drunk and angry. He accused her of disrespect, of ingratitude, of forgetting who saved her. When Daniel cried, Arthur snapped. He raised his hand, not at Jennifer. At the baby. That was the moment she stopped being afraid of consequences. She grabbed Daniel and ran barefoot into the cold, pounding on neighbors' doors until someone let her in. The police were called. Arthur spun a story. Jennifer didn't contradict him that night. Arthur told her if she ever embarrassed him again, she would lose a child forever. After that, she became invisible. The years that followed were smaller, quieter, tighter. Jennifer existed inside rules and routines. She cooked. She cleaned. She obeyed. And inside, something hardened. She began to plan. She hid money. She memorized schedules. She kept records, not written, but remembered. Dates. Words. Threats. Names of people who had seen things and looked away. I listened, shaking, as I realized how blind I had been. How willing. When the officer asked why she hadn't left earlier, Jennifer didn't hesitate. Because everyone told me this was normal, she said. Because I was a child when it started. Because the people who should have protected me didn't. She didn't look at me when she said it, but I felt it land. Arthur's death, she explained, had been sudden. A heart attack. No foul play. She had been alone in the house when it happened. She had called for help. She had done everything right. The officers confirmed it. No suspicion. No investigation, but freedom didn't arrive with the ambulance. It arrived slowly. It arrived at the funeral. When she saw his body and realized he could never hurt her or her son again, that was when the silence broke. The officers finished the statement hours later. They promised an investigation. They promised protection. They promised to look into the past. Promises don't erase damage. When we left the station, Jennifer looked smaller somehow. Like someone who had finally set down a heavy burden and didn't know how to stand without it. Outside, the night air was cold and clean. I don't know who I am without fear, as she said quietly. I didn't have an answer because the truth was, neither did I. Rehook. What Jennifer didn't know yet was that her statement would ignite a chain reaction, one that would pull powerful names into the light and force me to choose, at last, between comfort and truth. Jennifer's statement didn't explode all at once. Truth rarely does. At first, it moved quietly, like water seeping into cracks no one bothered to inspect. Detectives reopened files they hadn't touched in years. Social workers requested records that had been stamped resolved. Names were cross-checked. Dates aligned. Patterns emerged, and then the phone calls started. Arthur Montgomery's name appeared in places it shouldn't have, in old complaints that never went anywhere, in anonymous tips dismissed as misunderstandings, in hospital visits logged without context. One detective told us later that Arthur had survived for so long not because there was no evidence, but because there had been too much silence. Silence from families afraid of scandal, silence from institutions eager to close cases, silence from people like me. Jennifer and Daniel were moved into protective housing while the investigation unfolded. The house Arthur had controlled for years suddenly felt poisoned. Every room carried echoes. Jennifer barely slept. When she did, nightmares pulled her back into old rules and locked doors. Daniel, now 4, reacted differently. He became louder, braver, like a child testing whether the world was finally safe enough to make noise. Watching him broke my heart in a new way, because I wondered how much of that fear he had absorbed without words. I visited often. Sometimes Jennifer talked. Sometimes we sat in silence, drinking tea that went cold. The distance between us, years of unspoken guilt, hung in the air like fog. One evening, she finally said it. Why didn't you stop it? The question wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. I tried to answer. I talked about fear, about pressure, about thinking I was helping. The words sounded thin even to me. Excuses dressed as explanations. Jennifer listened without interruption. Then she nodded once. I know, she said. That's what scares me. The investigation widened. A former neighbor came forward. Then a nurse. Then a woman from another town who had been 15 when Arthur met her. Each story carried the same shape. Different details. Same ending: too young. Too isolated. Too controlled. Arthur hadn't been an exception. He had been a pattern. The district attorney called us in late one afternoon. He didn't smile. He laid out documents, testimonies, timelines. He said words like systemic failure and institutional neglect. He said there would be no criminal trial against a dead man, but there would be accountability, civil cases, public records, names released. The past, it turned out, was not done with us. When the story reached the press, it didn't come gently. Headlines were brutal. Some called Jennifer brave. Others called her unstable. Arthur's family denied everything. Old friends distanced themselves. My parents stopped leaving the house. The town split in two. Some people crossed the street to avoid us. Others left notes of apology on Jennifer's door. Strangers sent letters thanking her for speaking when they couldn't. Jennifer read every one. The hardest moment came during a recorded interview with investigators. They asked Jennifer to describe the wedding night. She paused for a long time. I reached for her hand, then stopped. This wasn't my moment to enter, she answered anyway. When it was over, she excused herself and went outside. I followed, finding her sitting on the steps, staring at nothing. I feel like I killed him twice, as she said. Once by surviving. Once by telling the truth. I told her that truth doesn't kill. It exposes. She didn't answer. That night, I lay awake replaying memories I had trained myself to forget. Conversations I should have questioned. Smiles I should have mistrusted. Silence I had mistaken for peace. The investigation concluded months later. Arthur Montgomery's legacy was dismantled piece by piece. His donations were returned. His name was removed from boards and buildings. Settlements were reached quietly, then not so quietly, but justice didn't feel like celebration. It felt like grief with its eyes open. One afternoon, Jennifer asked me to come with her to the old house. She said she needed to see it one last time. We stood in the doorway, neither of us stepping inside. I used to think surviving meant escaping, as she said. Now I think it means choosing what comes next. She turned to me. I can't do that here. I understood what she was asking before she said it. She wanted to leave, not just the house, the town, the version of herself built around fear. I nodded. I'll help, I said, and I meant it. Because for the first time since that winter night years ago, I wasn't choosing silence. Rehook, but leaving didn't end the story. Because rebuilding a life after truth comes out demands a final reckoning, one that would test forgiveness, family, and what justice really means. Leaving didn't feel heroic. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no speeches about fresh starts. Jennifer packed slowly, deliberately, as if each object carried weight. Daniel followed her from room to room, asking questions she answered with half smiles and gentle deflections. He was old enough to sense change, but not old enough to understand the cost that came with it. We left town before sunrise. The road stretched empty ahead of us, washed pale by early light. Jennifer sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her hand resting on Daniel's small fingers in the back. I drove. It felt right that way, like penance, like purpose. For years, Jennifer's life had been defined by reaction. Fear dictated her choices. Silence shaped her days. Now, for the first time, she was moving towards something instead of away from it. We settled in a coastal town 3 hours away. Nothing special. That was the point. No history. No whispers. Just space to exist without explanation. Jennifer found work at a community center. Daniel started school. He learned to sleep through the night. He stopped flinching at raised voices. Slowly, Cautiously, laughter returned to the house. Not loud, not constant, but real. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments. A night without nightmares. A conversation that didn't end in tears. A moment when Jennifer caught her reflection and didn't look away. I visited often at first. Then less frequently. Not because we drifted apart, but because Jennifer was learning to stand on her own terms. One afternoon, months later, she asked me something I hadn't expected. "Do you want to stay?" She said. The question carried more than logistics. It carried forgiveness. Or at least, the possibility of it. I told her the truth. "I don't think I can," I said. "Not yet." She nodded, understanding more than I said aloud. Forgiveness isn't owed. It's grown. And sometimes distance is part of that soil. Back home, the town felt smaller than ever. Arthur's name was spoken carefully now, if at all. People avoided eye contact. Some apologized. Others pretended nothing had happened. I didn't let them. When asked, I spoke plainly. Not dramatically. Not cruelly. Just truth. Silence had done enough damage. Years passed. Jennifer built a life measured not by what she endured, but by what she chose. Daniel grew into a thoughtful, gentle boy with a fierce sense of fairness. He asked questions. Jennifer answered them honestly, in age-appropriate pieces. No lies. No secrets shaped like protection. One day, Daniel asked about his father. Jennifer paused. Then said, he was a man who caused harm. And he is gone. Daniel nodded. That was enough. As for me, I learned that regret doesn't vanish. But it can be useful. It can sharpen you. It can remind you to speak sooner, act braver, choose harder truths. Jennifer and I found our way back to each other, not as sisters frozen in old roles, but as two women shaped by the same storm, standing on different ground. On the 10th anniversary of Arthur's death, Jennifer called me. "I don't feel angry anymore," she said. "And that scares me a little." I smiled through tears. "That's what peace feels like at first," I said. She laughed. Softly. Freely. That sound, unafraid, unguarded, was the real ending. Not justice, not exposure, not even forgiveness, but choice. Because survival is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of agency. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do after the truth comes out is build a life that no longer revolves around the past. Final rehook. If you've ever stayed silent to keep the peace, remember this: peace built on silence eventually collapses, but truth, once spoken, can carry you somewhere new.